Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Nibelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to talk about the biggest hot shots and have nots of the last couple of weeks. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. This man has an even sexier voice than usual tonight. Blake Creamer, how are we feeling?
I'm all right, buddy. I'm taking one for the team tonight. Obviously, Nate and I got out of our minds last Friday and just thrashed my voice completely. So yeah, I'm a little flinty today, but that's fine. You know what? This really sucks. This is a weird problem when you lose your voice because I can't discipline my kids properly. I tried. They were pissing me off last night. I'm getting all stern. I'm trying to put my dad voice on, but I literally sound like Marty Funkhauser from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Do you know who I'm talking about? The guy who was Super Dave Osborne. I mean, yeah, it's embarrassing. My wife was laughing. My kids were just not frightened at all. So yeah, it's a bit of a problem, but I'm here to support the team. I love these shows, and this show must go on, buddy. How you doing?
The show must go on. I'm doing pretty good. I was so excited to come on and talk about our matchups here and be like, yeah, I'm winning all four matchups. And then, some stuff happened that we'll get into a little bit later with the move of the week. And I may have completely sabotaged myself in that regard. But overall, I'm still calling it a W. I think the last few weeks have been pretty kind to both of us on the whole. I had won 3 of 4 last week, 3 of 4 again this week. So that's good stuff. We're rounding into mid-season form here on Apples and Genos. How are your matchups doing tonight?
Yeah, buddy, it's been like you said, it's been a really good stretch here. Last 2 weeks, like I've noticed it. Cupful does they have the statistics, for like the last 14 days, the last 30, and
Yeah.
so last 14, I'm in the top 5 in all of Cupful, like in
Hell
terms of
yeah.
points scored for. So that's where I'm at. It feels good, but yeah, I'm going to take a bad beat here in one of my leagues, which stinks. But you can't win them all, can you, Nate? Well, maybe we can. I don't know.
Maybe we can.
We're gonna
We
try.
try.
Yeah.
We try for sure. But let's not delay any longer. I know the people want to hear some newsies. So we'll get over and do that. There's not much, honestly. Usually there's plenty to talk about, especially from a busy Saturday. But yeah, not too much here. We got Chris Kreider out Sunday, listed as day to day. I think this is more of the same with Chris Kreider. It's been like an open secret, I think, that he's dealing with something that's like just not going to go away. And it's going to limit him in games, and it's probably going to keep him out of some games, some back to back situations, things like this. So, yeah, I think that's just where we're at with Chris Kreider. And this just feels like more confirmation of that. Joey Decord got placed on IR, but I wouldn't freak out about that. Retroactive to December 22nd, so literally they could pull him back off IR tomorrow if they really wanted to. So I don't think there's any new updates on his actual condition, but don't freak out about the IR designation. One goaltender that you might want to freak out a little bit about, though, is Linus Ullmark, especially if you're a Sens fan. Week to week, Travis Green came out today to say that he's still considered week to week. That's not a good sign. The Senators have been they were doing great for a while, and then the last little bit they've stumbled a little bit, and hard to blame them, right? You lose a guy like Linus Ullmark in net, that's obviously gonna take a bite out of your in-game potential. But yeah, tough for any fantasy managers with Ullmark, as well as he had been kind of rounding into form as well, and was looking like he could be one of those big-time volume goaltenders that are pretty much set and forget for fantasy purposes. So there's that there. What's this last thing added on here, Blake? You wanna talk about that?
Well, I did write about Austin Matthews. He basically crushed me in one league here. And another thing, I traded Austin Matthews in another league. So he's basically just tooting in my face with 5 points in 2 games since he's been back. And that's fine. Very hurtful. But, I can't stay mad at that beautiful mustachioed unit.
Hard to stay mad at a guy that beautiful, that's for sure. I don't know if anyone in the world actually thinks that Austin Matthews is all that attractive, but maybe he dresses well, I'm told. So I'm not the
Got a
I'm not the
forehead
guy
like a
that.
windshield. I don't know what's happening there.
All right, let's continue on from there. Let's talk about Matthews' teammate under the hot shots. We've got Mitch Marner at the top of the list here. Marner's been on a heater for sure. Coming into the game here on Sunday, he had 10 points in his last five, 4 goals, 6 assists, over 21 minutes a night, 203rd shots per 60, but 94th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 129 Corsi, 4 per 60, 93 in scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah, it feels like this is the season where Mitch Marner finally puts it all together, has that 100-point year that has eluded him thus far. He's paced for it in multiple seasons, but never actually gotten there. Now he's on pace for 29 goals, but 115 points on the season. 82% IPP, 14.3% shooting percentage, 14.2% on ice shooting percentage on the season. That's probably a touch high from where he ends up, but honestly, I do think that he probably hits 100 points with the start that he's had now.
Yeah, you love to see it. I mean, it's the revenge tour here for Marner. He was obviously in the news for all the wrong reasons at the end of last year, and it's great to see. Like this guy's on a 112-point pace. That's amazing. And I'm just digging in here of his numbers at 5-on-5. Like his shooting percentage is down a little bit. Like he usually shoots a little bit better than what he's been able to do. Like maybe there's a little bit more room there. His scoring chances are down a little bit, but I mean, it's just been a great season. And with Matthews out for a lot of that. So I feel like it's really awesome to see him get a 5-point night now that he's playing with Matthews and Nyes on the same line. Like they were clearly cooking, and they were cooking again tonight. They looked really good. And I don't know. I mean, I think, yeah, this is absolutely the year that he's probably going to pop for over 100 points. And I'm here for it. This guy's a stud.
Absolutely. We don't need to spend too much time on Marner. I think everybody's caught up on that one. Wyatt Johnston, though, has been a source of some consternation for his fantasy managers for much of this year. Hopefully, you were listening when we were saying to hang on to Wyatt Johnston no matter what. He's up to 3 goals and 9 points in his last five. Just over 20 and a half minutes average time on ice, 136 shots per 60, 41st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, and 9th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60 in these last 5 games. It's now a 20-goal, 62-point pace for Wyatt Johnston, and I still feel like there's more to give. How do you think about Wyatt Johnston at this moment, and what do you project as a point pace rest of season?
Yeah, that's a good question. 9 points in the last five. I love that. The minutes are popping off the page for me here, and I really like to see that. I think that the injuries to, Mason Marchment and Tyler Seguin have sort of boosted Wyatt Johnston a little bit, and he's been relied on a little bit more heavily there in the offense. And yeah, like he's had a down season in terms of conversion, right? His finishing has been pretty poor this year, but he's been pretty rock solid with the individual scoring chances. That's something that he's pretty damn elite at. Like he was one of the best in the playoffs last year, if not the best, like if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember, but he just does that really well. And when your scoring chances, your individual scoring chances are really high, chances are your shooting percentage is probably going to be pretty high too. And he just hasn't had that luck this year. So I think, he's also enjoying like another Jamie Benessence. Oh my God.
Ooh.
Jamie Ben is popping the hell off. And you put Wyatt Johnston with Matt Duchene. Sure. This line's playing pretty damn good. So yeah, I still think that Wyatt Johnston has more to give. I think 70-point pace rest of season is probably where Johnston lives if everything here holds.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at the fact that Wyatt Johnston first 2 years plays 82 games his first 2 years in the league, shoots 15% on the dot, 14.8% last year, and now this year 8.5%. That's not going to hold. There's no chance. His individual scoring chances 4 per 60 higher this year than last year. Actually, on the season he's 8th in the whole league in individual scoring chances 4 per 60, and he's playing big minutes as you
Power play
mentioned,
time too.
even more this year than ever before. The on-ice shooting percentage might not come up that much, but I do think the IPP could come up even a little bit more from the 66%, and for sure the shooting percentage is going to come up, so I do project more goals for him moving forward. When I look at where I had him before the season, I had him for 33 goals, 76 points. That was based on 18 and a half minutes average time on ice, and now if he's at 20 and a half, I mean, you can kind of do the math. He could definitely do a lot better than this, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think point per game is within reach for Wyatt Johnston rest of season. Let's move over to Minnesota. We got Marco Rossi tossing out 4 Apple games like it's nothing. He
Love it.
has 3 goals and 9 points in his last 5 as well. Over 20 minutes, average time on ice, 178th in shots per 60, 157 individual scoring chances for per 60, 72nd in on ice scoring chances for per 60. Now on a 31 goal, 76-point pace. What do you make of Marco Rossi at this point? There was obviously some concern about him getting bounced around with Jeek coming back. We have Kaprizov probably coming back at some point in the next little bit here. What do you think happens with Rossi when the Wild finally do have their full complement of players?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he'll lose a tiny bit of value, but I mean, he played with Kaprizov, right? They had him and Kaprizov, and then the Zucchini Man. I can't do it properly, but that's about as good as I can do it. So that's a nice line. So his top 6 deployment is pretty much locked and loaded, right? So I just feel like this is a guy that has taken a step, right? He was obviously dealing with some medical issues that probably affected him even up to last year, right? And he was still able to play 82 games, 40 points. Well, he's going to smash his career high this season. 76-point pace. I think that's a little bit rich. The shooting percentage, 21%. I mean, that's probably going to go down. But I don't know. The ice time looks really solid to me. Like he was getting 18 to 20 minutes when Cap was in the lineup. So I feel good about that. This is a guy that you sort of earmarked as a sleeper going into this year. And I think like he's probably going to finish the season with like 60 to 65 points. And that's going to be a smash. Like this is a guy you probably got off waivers.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you picked him up, you picked him up for free, so you're probably not too concerned. You're just kind of taking the extra production while you're getting it. But it is worth thinking about what happens when they do have everybody there. I wonder if they try that 5 forward power play for a bit as well, just because, like, all respect to Brock Faber and Jared Spurgeon, but they don't really move the needle in terms of
Yep.
adding anything to a power play. And clearly, Marco Rossi has at least held his own in that regard. So there's that possibility as well. But obviously, if it is Rossi that gets bumped off the top power play when they do have everybody in place and healthy again, then that does take a chunk out of his potential. Even with that, though, like it does seem to me like they're trying to have 2 scoring lines here, and they might
Yep.
go with Rossi with Cap and Joel Eriksson Ek with Boldy, that kind of thing. And so that will definitely keep Rossi at a rosterable level, in my opinion. The question is, do you just kind of lose some of the upside? So that's something to watch for sure. But I think that there's a pretty solid chance that you just hang on to Marco Rossi the rest of the season and you enjoy it. Moving over to Buffalo, we got Jason Zucker. He's got 6 goals and 2 assists for 8 points in his last 5 games here. Over 18 minutes a night. 102nd shots per 60, 149th individual scoring chances for per 60, in the 200s in Corsi for per 60 and scoring chances for per 60. He's on a 31 goal, 64-point pace. Really, the thing here is how much do we trust the deployment, right? Because on the season, his deployment is just over 15 and a half minutes average
Yep.
time on ice. But if he's going to be skating 18 plus minutes a night, if he's going to be skating on a line with Tage Thompson, and in the last game it was Dylan Cousins, but basically the Tage Thompson exposure is what you're looking for there. If he's going to be on the top power play with Tage Thompson, if those things are happening for Jason Zucker night in, night out, and he's getting the 18 minutes that come with it, then I think you have to be like reasonably interested in what Zucker does. Like Zucker has done this in the past too.
Yep.
It's not his first kick at the can where he can be that kind of third wheel or something along those lines where he just gets himself to the right place at the right time. I remember shouting out Pascal Dupuis as like a guy who is like just good enough to be elevated by
Yeah.
Crosby. I feel like
Yeah.
Jason Zucker is that guy who's like just good enough to be elevated by a star player on his line. So yeah, I think I'm getting to a point where I have a little bit more than passing interest in Jason Zucker for that reason alone.
Yep, I think you nailed it on the head. To me, it's really about his ice time, right? That deployment. If he can get 18 minutes in the top 6 and top power play, I think we're definitely interested, right? But just know, like you said, that I think this could fall off at any point because he's also a guy that can play up and down the lineup. So if things aren't going, they'll put him down on the third line to be a banger again, and then we lose all of that offensive upside. And keep in mind, like this, his last little bit here, 8 points in 5 games, 6 of those are goals, massive efficiency, right? 73% IPP. He's shooting 46%. Right in the last 5 games, that's obviously going to go down, right? And he's shooting a career high 20% on the season. So he's redlining, and that's not something that happens in your 33rd year. Like all of a sudden you're this massively efficient player. So expect those goals to drop off. But if this deployment sticks, I think, we're looking at definitely a fringe rosterable player or a streamer with benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think he can hold 55 points with this deployment as a pace rest of season with a little bit of upside for more if he continues to be just kind of a little bit more efficient than he has been in the past. Let's move over to Detroit. Basically, the entire top power play in Detroit is cooking right now. You got Lucas Raymond is actually leading the way. He's got 8 points in his last 5, but Kane, Larkin, and DeBrincat all have 7, and then Mo Sider on the back end has 6 assists. Kind of just feeding all these guys. Larkin in particular popping off 5th in shots per 60, 5th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60 over the last 5 games while averaging over 20 minutes a night. He's definitely kind of fulfilling his promise as a true number 1 center over there. 4 goals amongst those 7 points for him. But really, I think all of these guys are contributing in really meaningful ways at the moment. And it does seem like the coaching change has brought some new life to Detroit and to their top guys in particular. How do you figure this will continue from here, Blake? Do you see this continuing? Maybe not at this pace, but do you think that this is real, or is it just a new coach bump and we'll kind of find some other point to equalize to? What's your take on Detroit as it stands now?
It's probably somewhere in between. That's the easiest, safest answer for us here at Apples and Ginos. But I do feel like they've got the lines kind of locked in here. Like I love Patrick Kane with DeBrincat. I think that needs to be a thing. Derek Lalonde was notoriously just putting weird lines together that made no sense. So, Larkin and Raymond for sure, and Kane and DeBrincat together. I think that makes a nice top 6 there. But yeah, like Larkin is the engine here, right? That's the guy who's really bringing all the offense to the table. And me, like I love Lucas Raymond. I'm a fan of this player, like watching this player and sort of his offensive contributions, not so much individually, but yeah, like even digging in on some of Corey Schneider's all 3 zone stuff, like Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, these guys are popping off when it comes to shot assists and scoring chance assists, right? And then you got Larkin, who's popping off with individual shots and individual scoring chances. So these lines work. And then, Patrick Kane, we talked about him. We've talked about him for about 3 weeks now because people were dropping him. And I'm so excited that I got Patrick Kane on my Cacuffle team, not because he's some league winner, but this is still a guy that should probably put up like 60 to 70 points, right? And that's not a guy that should be on your waivers. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm happy to see with the new coach, I think he's putting these players in a position to succeed. And yeah, I feel like it's got to be a net positive for Detroit to get Lalonde out of there and McClellan in.
Yeah, tend to agree with all of that. I guess just looking at where these players sit right now, I think Lucas Raymond is still running a little bit hot, 20.3% shooting percentage, 14.1% on ice shooting percentage. That's like several notches higher than anybody else in Detroit. And I do think that he kind of profiles as a more efficient player than like a volume stat kind of guy. But even having said that, I do think that he's the most likely guy to take a step back. Also, it's early times here with the coaching change, but looks like he's getting a little bit less ice time in the early going under McClellan than he was under Lalonde. So that's something to watch as well, whereas the other guys are pretty much bang on where they were. So a little bit of something there maybe to watch with Raymond, but has to be viewed as a net positive for the team. And especially for Dylan Larkin and Patrick Kane, I think those 2 in particular seem to have new life under Todd McClellan. Heading out to Seattle, where we've got Vince Dunn with 3 goals and 7 points in his last 5 games from the back end there. Over 21 minutes a night, 92nd in both shots per 60 and individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 32nd, Corsi, 4 per 60, 68th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Dunn's only played 20 games on the season, but he has 18 points, including 8 goals. That's a 33 goal, 74 point, 82 game pace. What do you think is the truth here with Dunn? Do you think that he's showing you something here that would cause you to change where you're at preseason, or do you expect this to all kind of equalize out? What do we do with Vince Dunn?
I don't know. You just sit back and enjoy what this player is bringing to the table. This guy is the ultimate like underdog. People don't think of Vince Dunn as some elite offensive defenseman, but in a 20 game sample size, this guy's on a 74-point pace with 8 goals. Damn. That's very nice to see. And also keep in mind, like they have a stud behind Vince Dunn. Giggity. It's Brandon Montour. He's ready to go. And Vince Dunn is like, it's no problem. Vince Dunn's like, no, I got power play 1. I'm good to go. And the coach, Dan Bylsma, feels great keeping Vince Dunn on top power play there. So yeah, I think we got a true offensive defenseman here. And, there's a chance he could lead the team in points, like, or at least point pace. It's crazy. So obviously massive efficiency here for Vince Dunn, like 8 goals on 19% shooting for a defenseman. No. Okay, that's crazy, but he is a very efficient shooter. Like he's had 2 straight seasons prior to this where he shot over 9%, which is great. So yeah, I'm obviously in on Vince Dunn. I didn't get him anywhere. It's just one of those guys that kind of slips by, but I don't know. Next year, I don't think I'm going to let him slip by again. I love what I'm seeing from this player.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. They have run that 1A 1B situation on the power play for a lot of the year when both Dunn and Montour are healthy. Yeah, Vince Dunn, I think, is a guy that can contribute a lot more at even strength, though. Like,
Yeah,
he's always had a really high IPP for a defenseman at even strength, like one of the highest across the league. Like, probably without actually going through and doing the math, I think he would have been top 10 in my projected IPPs for all defensemen on the season at even strength. So I think that he is a guy who can do that at even strength, generate from that point, which kind of makes him a little bit more, impervious to the whims of Dan Bylsma and the top power play or who's playing where, how that gets worked around. That does give you just kind of that baseline. And obviously, if there were to be anything that would happen to Brandon Montour where he's not in the situation anymore, we saw it actually when Vince Dunn was out. Brandon Montour immediately took over as a true power play 1 quarterback. They still kind of rotated the forwards, kind of 1A, 1B, but Montour got like 75% of the minutes on the back end. I think they would do the same thing with Vince Dunn if the roles were reversed. So you still have that kind of upside with Vince Dunn as well. Definitely don't think that he's going to continue on some sort of 74-point pace for the rest of the season. Massive efficiency kind of across the board there. But I do think that this is a guy, he's skating 21 minutes a night. He's shown that he can be massively efficient. I do think this is a guy who can hit probably a 55-point pace just on the strength of his even strength contributions and the 10 or 12-point power play pace that he might be able to put up as well, just getting half of those power play minutes roughly. I am a pretty big fan of Vince Dunn. I talked about him at the beginning of the year as one of these guys that will slip by you, as you said, Blake. It's easy to just be like, Vince Dunn, not going to hurt me. But also has that upside too of, could carry the mail as the full top power play guy, and that could be a big win for you. So I got a lot of love for Vince Dunn. Definitely running hot at the moment, but definitely much better than a lot of people were giving him credit for, and probably still are giving him credit for to this day. All right, last one. I saved this one up for you here, buddy. The late night beauty himself, Cam Fowler. He's further ingratiating himself with the managers who made the pickup after he was promoted to the top power play in St. Louis. 4 goals, 7 points in his last 5 games, 23 and a half minutes, average time on ice, 24th amongst defensemen, shots per 60, 16th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. What is going on with Cam Fowler in St. Louis? Like, is this the new Cale Makar? What's happening here?
Yes, this is the new Cale Makar, folks. That's confirmed. No, but the late night beauty, he's more of a midnight beauty now. All right.
Okay.
People are lining up for this man's number. All right. Come to my team, Cam Fowler. All right. He's not the last resort, but if you want to see what Cam Fowler looked like as the late night beauty, definitely check out his headshot. His hair's all mussed up. This is what the man looks like when you're like, scrolling the bar at the end of the night. You're like, yeah, okay, Cam Fowler, let's go. So he's definitely looking a lot better now. More Botox. He's got hair plugs. Everything looks good. Eyebrows are tweezed. Anyways, yeah, it's a nice story for Cam Fowler. Like, he played on such a bad team for so long. I think there's a stigma with the player. You're like, oh, it's Cam Fowler, right? But he's actually really good. I think this is a player that can do a lot more than what he did in Anaheim, right? With a better supporting cast. And I think we're seeing that here. I'm just looking at his last game here. He wasn't on power play one last game. It was Scott Perunovich. So, I mean, I just temper expectations with Cam Fowler. This is not some league winner. This isn't like a guy where you're like, oh, wow, all of a sudden I've got like a 60-point D-man here. No, this is Cam Fowler, folks. Okay. I mean, I think ceiling for Cam Fowler, we're looking at a 50-point pace, right? And I think everything has to go right there because St. Louis is still a team that relies on massive efficiency themselves, even with Craig Berube out of town, right? Like, it's still a team that, yeah, they set up really high quality chances and they convert on those chances, right? But they aren't, putting up a bunch of volume out there. So temper expectations, Cam Fowler, sure. Like, who do you think, this is a little bit off topic, but who do you think so far this year, maybe put you on the spot, is a guy that was like a must roster player that you wanted to be in on right away when something happened? Like a player like Cam Fowler. Like for me, it would be Mackenzie Blackwood. That's the guy who all of a sudden I was like, okay, like that's a must add player immediately. Like, can you think of anyone that comes to mind?
There's not too many that come to mind off the top. Definitely, there are some situations like, I mean, we were just talking about with Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour, right? If one of
Yep.
those two goes away, then the other one instantly has a huge uptick in potential fantasy value. Um, yeah, I
Colton
can't
was
think
one.
of.
Ross Colton.
Colton was
Yeah,
definitely
when we
one.
had
Yeah,
injuries there.
that's a good
Yeah,
shot.
there you go.
Yeah, yeah. Ross Colton's got to be. I can't say anything else now.
I
Like,
know,
it's
I
got to
know.
be Ross
Yeah,
Colton.
yeah, yeah. I should have said Ross Colton. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's a fair comparison. It looks like I'm just looking at these power play units. It looks like they kind of split them up, honestly. Like, it was Shen, Kairu, Neighbors, Holloway on one. It was Saad, Sundqvist, Buchnevich, Thomas on another. So yeah, they kind of did a 1A 1B situation for no
Yeah,
apparent reason. Um, Interesting, but either way, I think
yeah.
you're happy with
Still
what you've
value.
gotten
Yes.
out of Cam Fowler. I think they've been trying to make Perunovic work for a long time, and I just don't know if that's ever going to happen. So yeah, I think I'm into Cam Fowler for the time being. I agree that you're probably looking at a 50-point ceiling as a point pace rest of year, unless, yeah, I mean, 23 and a half minutes is nothing to sneeze at either.
Yep.
Just being out there, we've talked about how we really like Jim Montgomery and what he's done for the Blues so far. They seem to have some, Dylan Holloway taking a step this year, really
Yeah.
elevating the offensive profile of that team where they have another guy where they can start to fill out two scoring lines. Yeah, and there's a lot of things pointed in the right direction for the Blues. So if Cam Fowler can even just ride the wave there a little bit, maybe he can do a little bit better than that. But definitely we need to see more before we can anoint him. For now, you're just happy to have him on your squad and you're rolling with it.
Check out that headshot, folks. All right, that's the face of desperation. Okay, right there.
All right. All Cam Fowler jokes aside, we should get this thing moving. Let's talk about the Patreon for a moment. $2 a month gets you the supporter tier, access to Patreon-only live shows. I said this on the Waiver Wire episode, but in case you missed it, I am going to be doing a Patreon-only show after puzzling players on Monday, January 6th. You're going to need to get signed up and get into the Discord to find the stage in Discord where I'll be doing that there, but I will be posting it after the fact. So if you want to join after the fact, you will be able to get the audio and the PDF that accompanies it. But I'm going to be going through all of my kind of buys and sells kind of as we approach the mid-season here, at least of the fantasy season. We're kind of really, we've passed the mid-season of the midpoint of the regular season for fantasy. And so I do think we're at a spot where we should be starting to think about playoffs and setting our teams up for that, and who we should be acquiring if you're ahead, who we should be looking at if we're behind. Guys who are just buy lows, like standard buy lows, but also guys who put us in the best position to bring home a championship. So going to be going through all that. Apple's tier, $8 a month, gets you those patron-only live shows, also gets you access to the patron-only Discord channels, and gets you access to our show notes, including the notes for the show we're doing right now. The Apple's NG Notes player evaluation tool is one other perk that you're going to want to get your hands on. It just gives you all these stats that we're talking about all the time, gives you a way to evaluate two players against each other if you're making a tough decision. For the true degenerates, the $15 a month Junos tier gets you all those previous perks mentioned, and I will personally answer every single one of your questions guaranteed. Blake, are you ready for the have-nots?
I'm doing the best I can, Nate. All right, I'm happy to be here. All right, let's get to biz.
Let's get into it. Right off the top, we have the Florida Panthers. Yeah, if you play for the Florida Panthers, apparently you have just completely forgotten how to put the puck into the net. Between Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Carter Verhaeghe, Aaron Ekblad, and Matthew Tkachuk, those 5 players have 3 total points between them in the last 5 games, which is just unbelievable. Like, I don't know if that has ever happened for this group of 5 players, like as long as they've been together on the Panthers. I have to imagine it's one of the worst stretches they've ever had in terms of actually putting the puck in the net. Overall, like there's different levels of concern here with different players. Some weird stuff happening with Sam Reinhart, where all of a sudden he's 335th in shots per 60 over the last 5 games, still skating 21 minutes a night. But yeah, the shots are just non existent all of a sudden. 239th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 146 Corsi 4 per 60, still 89th in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. He's the one who sticks out in terms of the underlying numbers as them just like going away for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
I would just chalk this up to like some regression. We've obviously talked about how he's had some unbelievable shooting percentages all last year and in through half of this year now at this point. Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. I don't want to speculate on injury, obviously, again, but it does feel like very out of the blue for his shots to have just completely dropped off. And the fact that he's still playing 21 minutes a night, like, makes you think that it's not an injury situation. So weird stuff. Either way, I'm going to be watching Sam Reinhart a little bit more closely here the next little bit, and you should too if you've got him on your squads, because you're going to want to see something here for that to turn around, because it does seem like it is kind of only him that this is happening to. And doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe it's just a blip on the radar and things go back to normal as soon as the next game here on Monday, but something to watch for sure. Then Carter Verhaeghe has been demoted. Line 3, power play 2. That's a weird spot for him to be in for sure. The minutes have obviously dropped off a little bit there. That being said, like, still 30th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 6th in Corsi 4 per 60, and 4th in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 over the last 5 games. I have zero worries about the talent of Carter Verhaeghe. It's literally just this deployment. I put out a tweet on Friday saying this is absolutely the lowest point of the season to buy Carter Verhaeghe. I still believe that. I send offers for him in every single league I'm in. I'm not like a big trader usually because I just get rejected with no counter on every offer I make. Everybody thinks I'm like trying to pull a fast one or something. I don't know. Hockey podcaster curse, I guess. But either way, I couldn't get anything done for Verhaeghe, but maybe I need to try harder because I do believe that we're going to get a big time bounce back from Verhaeghe this year. The other guys are a little bit more difficult to read through. Tell me about the other 3, Bennett, Ekblad, Tkachuk. Who concerns you the most? Who do you think is bouncing back sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, of those 3 players, like truthfully, with Sam Bennett, the metrics are always pretty damn nice, but it's not a guy I ever expect too much from. Like, he's just a chucker, right? He's a supplementary guy. He's obviously mega valuable when it comes to playoff time. This guy's a mean person. All right. He's very disruptive to other teams, but in terms of efficiency, he's usually pretty stinky. And this year, he's actually pretty damn efficient for him. He's shooting 12.3%. That's the second highest mark of his career. So, I mean, all intents and purposes, like, Sam Bennett's actually doing pretty well. He's on a 58-point pace, which would be a career high for him if he was able to match it. So I'm definitely not too worried about him, but I also don't have too high of expectations there, even though the metrics are good. Aaron Ekblad, again, I think there was a nice little resurgence there with him going to power play 1, and that's still the case, which is nice. But, you know, with we're talking about all of Florida's top players going cold. And if they're going cold, then Ekblad is going cold, right? Because he's not a guy driving that offense. It's going to be guys like Barkov. It's going to be guys like Verhaeghe and Kachuk. Ekblad's just happy to be here, right? Passing the puck and get the biz. So, yeah, I think when these guys turn it around, which I agree with you, I think they will. Sam Reinhart and Verhaeghe in particular, I think, yeah, there's way more in the tank there. I'm not too concerned with Reinhart. The metrics are concerning, but like you said, the deployment that gives me a lot of confidence, like that he's good to go, or if he is injured, it's something that's not affecting his engine, right? He's able to get out there, and I think he'll work it out. So Ekblad, I think will be fine. Matt Kachuk, though, like this is an interesting player. Like he started out pretty cold, and then went on a binge, like just went crazy, and now he's kind of cold again. So you and I talked about him a little bit in the preseason, just being like almost demoted to like a secondary kind of a guy, at least in the regular season when it comes to the Florida Panthers, right? His ice time down a little bit. We had 18 minutes, 38 seconds last year. He's averaging 17 minutes, 45 this year. So I think it's weird. He's just not prioritized in the offense as much because they just have so many pieces here. But I do think he's better than what he's shown here. The metrics are looking really good. 1 goal in 5 games. Look at this ice time, 15 minutes, 30, that's terrible. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things in there. He got a misconduct in the last game, and that contributed to him only skating 14:20. Then I think the 5th game that's being drawn there is the game that he got kneed by Kucherov. And missed a bunch of time before he came back. That was 11-14 in that game. So yeah, I think that's dragging it down. But definitely, there's no 21-minute nights for Matthew Tkachuk anymore. They're very, very rare at this point. Like it's 1 in 5 that he might crest 20 minutes now, whereas it used to be obviously much higher when he was scoring like 100 points in a season. So yeah, I mean, you look up and he's on a 33 goal, 84 point pace, under 18 minutes average time on ice. And I kind of think that's sustainable at that level, like point per game, Matthew Tkachuk, 35 goal, Matthew Tkachuk. I think that is pretty reasonable. So yeah, if somebody is like feeling low on him because he's gone cold again a little bit, then I mean, yeah, you can definitely send some offers there, and I wouldn't hate that. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about Tkachuk in any direction, but it does kind of suck to just be like, man, if only we got, if we gave those 21 minutes of Sam Reinhart to Matthew Tkachuk, could he be scoring 110 points for me instead of 84? I think that's definitely a possibility that it just seems like the Panthers and Paul Maurice are not willing to explore. So that's my thoughts on that. Let's head over to Ottawa. Tim Stützle, Josh Norris, both making the list here. Just a single goal for both of these guys in their last 5 games. Stützle, 20 minutes, average time on ice. Josh Norris, a touch under 19 minutes. Neither of these guys are shooting the puck at all. 326 shots per 60 for Stützle, 339 for Norris, 360 individual scoring chances per 60 for Stützle, 316 for Norris. Just not enough happening there for those guys in terms of actually getting the puck towards the net. Stützle is on a 26-goal, 86-point pace, about 20 minutes. The deployment really hasn't changed versus the season long for either of these players, whereas you have Norris on a 30-goal, but 48-point pace. Talk to me about these two. I think Norris has always kind of been around that streamer level player. People have held on to him because he's been productive and now maybe have moved on since he's kind of lost his charm as of late. What do you think about this here? And what do you think about Stützle in particular? How are you valuing him rest of season? He was on a hot streak, but has obviously cooled off in a big way now. Where do you think the truth lies for Tim Stützle?
I kind of like where he's at right now, like an 86-point pace. That feels like kind of what this player should be, like based on some of the metrics that we're looking at here, right? Like, you've definitely identified this is not a guy that gets his own individual scoring chances and individual shots, right? He's not really good at that, but he's amazing at shot assists, chance assists. Obviously, his offensive contribution is off the charts. He's really good at bringing the puck into the zone as well. So, when your teammates go cold, your line mates go cold, like you're going to go cold. And I mean, he's not even getting, like, his deployment has been a little bit, at least at even strength, hasn't been as much as I'd like to see. Like in the last game, his line was the lowest even strength time on ice there. So that's kind of stinky to me. And who is he playing with actually right now? Yeah, Drake Batherson and Adam Gaudette, the hockey god. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, Batherson's, not really doing what he did earlier. I think it's just a cold streak. But I do feel like this is a player that does live off of efficiency. He's shooting 16.4%, which I think is totally reasonable. And 86-point pace, I think is good moving forward. It's not a guy I had a piece of this year. And I don't know. I haven't really been watching that much Ottawa, to be honest with you, as well. It's like once Ullmark got injured as well, I think like it was such a big boon to have Ullmark playing as well as he was, and they were playing with leads, and now I feel like they're playing behind a lot, and it's still a young team there in Ottawa. So I don't know. All that to say, I'm not super concerned. Like 80 to 85-point paces where I think Sousa lives. And as far as Norris goes, like he's just a streamer level for me, but it's kind of in that Jason Zucker vein, right? Like it's a guy that gets power play one and some decent deployment at even strength. And yeah, if he has a good streaming schedule, this guy should probably be rostered, but I have no qualms like kicking this guy to the curb.
Yep. I tend to agree with that there. Stützle I had projected for 79 points at the beginning of the season. Looks like he's being a little more efficient this year. Maybe he can sustain that, especially with the shooting percentage. So yeah, I think it's reasonable for him to be in this range anyway, around the point per game range. So I think, yeah, this is probably just some natural regression. You don't like to see that he's kind of under his season long paces, though, in terms of the individual chance
Yeah.
generation, because that's not a place where he can afford to be. And when he doesn't already generate very much. Josh Norris, yeah, I tend to agree there. He's getting a lot more minutes than I thought he would, but he hasn't done much more other than like banging in pucks on the power play. Uh, just kind of set up as a shooter, it seems
Yep.
like. The 30 goal, 48-point pace. He's got 14 goals and only 8 assists on the season. And he hasn't even had as good of chance generation, like individual chance generation numbers on the season, and obviously not in the last five. So I've kind of soured on Josh Norris a little bit this season. I think he's kind of lived off efficiency, 19.7% shooting percentage. And I think that, yeah, you can drop Josh Norris if you need to there, and I wouldn't feel too bad about it, even though he is on the power play one unit. Let's head over to Long Island. Brock Nelson, the grumpiest man alive, 1 assist in
Yeah.
his last 5 games. And this has been a cold streak that's basically lasted the entire season at this point. He's only got 10 goals and 11 assists for 21 points in 40 games. Still getting 19 minutes a night. The on ice numbers don't look too bad. 24th, Corsi 4 per 60, 75th. On ice scoring chances 4 per 60. But he's 224th in shots per 60, 173rd in individual scoring chances 4 per 60 in the last 5 games. And this is a guy who, like, typically has been able to generate a lot individually, and that's why we kind of liked him so much. This year, that has not happened. The IPP's down, the shooting percentage is down, the on ice shooting percentage is down. Just the full New York Islanders effect coming into play for Brock Nelson here. What do you think about Nelson? Do you think this is something that lasts now at this point? I talked a little bit about him on the waiver wire show, but curious to get your take here, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, it's again not a guy I own anywhere, but this is a player that has been very valuable in the last couple seasons. But he's the grumpiest man on earth for a reason this year. All right, the vibe in on the island there is pretty stinky. To be honest, they have been playing a little bit better as of late, but haven't been getting the results. It was nice they did get the win tonight with Horvat getting the overtime winner. But yeah, donuts for Brock Nelson. It's crazy, and he didn't score in all of December. That's nuts. Like this is a guy is one of their better goal scorers. So I don't know. And you juxtapose that with like Anders Lee popping the hell off. It's like it's kind of I don't know. They're starting to prioritize Anders Lee a lot more than Nelson. He's on the second power play, which stinks as well. Like this might be where he lives from now on until he gets off the schneid. And that's not a great place to be. Like what is his point pace right now? Like 43 or 46 or something like that. Like it just might be where he lands at this point. But this is a guy that we usually like for his shots on goal per 60. Right. Last year, he shot 9.26 at 5-on-5. Well, this year it's down to 7.25. So seems like last year was maybe the outlier. And like you said, IPP down, shooting percentage down. Yeah, it might just be a player that's sort of they're moving away from and starting to prioritize some other players.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me. Don't know what exactly is going wrong, but until it gets better, I'm okay to move away from Brock Nelson if you need to. Um, I think it should get better, but there's nothing that he's showing me at the moment that says it is going to get better. So yeah, Brock Nelson, like I'm actually pretty high on a number of Islanders to get better in the back half of the season here. Brock Nelson is not one that I can comfortably sign off on at the moment as a rebound candidate. Timo Meyer over on the New Jersey Devils, just one goal in his last five, under 16 minutes average time on ice in the last 5 games. That's a tough sight to see for Timo Meyer rosters such as myself. 141st in shots per 60, 96th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 92nd Corsi 4 per 60, 72nd in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 these last 5 games. It's a 28 goal, 56 point pace for Timo Meyer, still third in the league on the season in individual scoring chances 4 per 60, in single digits in the on ice numbers that we track. Under the hood still looks pretty good, but the minutes keep kind of ticking down here for Meyer, and now the production has started to reflect it. What do we think about him rest of season? Would you consider moving off of him if you can find somebody to take him? Do you even think that's a worthwhile pursuit because nobody's going to want him? What do you think of Timo Meyer, Blake?
It's been an interesting season for sure. I feel like there was so much expectation with Meyer because of the player he was in San Jose, right? But there's a huge difference, and we've obviously talked about that. But he was the guy or one of the guys in San Jose, and he's not that. He's not even close to that here in Jersey, especially under Sheldon Keefe. Like he's been minimized big time. His deploy or his metrics, like especially at 5-on-5, they're all pretty reasonable. They're all within like his normal metrics. It's just his deployment stinks. And I don't really see how that's going to change. They don't have any reason to bump him up the lineup. They're succeeding. Like also, he's not getting power play one. They obviously like Stefan Nason there. Shout out to Stefan Nason. But yeah, I don't see Meyer taking that spot from Nason anytime soon. It's going to take an injury for him to get up on the power play. And I think without that power play one time, yeah, we're looking at like a 55 to 60 point player max with Timo Meyer. So that's how I'm valuing him moving forward. Obviously, depending on your format, like, he has a lot of value in bangers leagues. I've got him in a full bangers league, and he's ranked like 35th in the format or something like that. Like he's doing fine. But would you? I'd probably just wait for Timo Meyer to pop off one of these games and then try and offload him, right? Because he's not going to be this third round guy or fourth round guy that you drafted in draft season. I just don't see that in the cards this year. I think some stuff needs to happen deployment wise for him to reach that level.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair take overall. It's tough, right? Because you see the possibility with these underlying numbers being so good on the season that if he ever got that kind of top line deployment, like all it takes is one injury, right, to some guy, and now Timo Meyer's on the top power play that's ranked second in the league, and he's just popping off. And in your fantasy playoffs, he's the guy lighting it up for a point per game plus all the shots and hits that he normally provides on top of that. So there is that element to it, but like also the Devils are second in power play percentage, so there's literally no reason for them to put Timo Meyer up there unless there is an injury. So it's kind of like all potential, it feels like, with Timo Meyer in terms of what he could be. And so it's hard to move off a guy like that, but it's also hard to like accept some new reality that he might just be a 60 point pace player rest of season, and he might go cold at the wrong time for you. He might get 16 minutes a night or less for a stretch of time where it really hurts you in your playoff push. It's a tough place to be for Timo Meyer rosterers. Hopefully you're in a spot where you can kind of hang on, but if it's a spot where you absolutely need somebody who's doing a little bit better and you have to make a move to sell off Timo Meyer to somebody who can afford to wait on his potential and hope that he really hits in a big way for them, and you can get something that's a little bit more assured, I wouldn't blame you for doing that at this point. So yeah, difficult player, and it really is all about the deployment for me with Meyer moving forward. All right, Morgan Riley next up. I believe this is updated now with the Leafs game where he scored the OT winner. I should probably double check this before I perjure myself further, as I like to say. I like to
Yeah,
use
it
big
is.
words from
It
time
is.
to
It is.
time. Yeah, so he had 0 points in what is this, 7 games prior to this, and then gets the OT winner, skating 26 minutes and 43 seconds in the game here tonight against Philadelphia. Yeah, it's a weird spot, obviously, for Morgan Riley, 23 and a half minutes average time on ice, but obviously that's also getting boosted by the 26 plus that he got in this particular game. It's a spot where he is on the top power play again and has been for a little bit now. Underlying numbers don't look too bad. 17th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On ice numbers, 74th Corsi, 4 per 60. 51st in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. He's got on a 10 goal, 38-point pace. Obviously, we know Oliver Ekman-Larsson took over some top power play duty. They went with a 5 forward power play for some time. So Riley has been off the top power play, and it's impossible to trust that he's just going to stay on top power play now that he is there. He has a 40% IPP, 6.9% shooting percentage, 9.7% on ice shooting percentage. I tend to think that Riley deserves better than 38-point pace for the rest of the season, but what do you think, and how much risk is there with this player moving forward?
Um, yeah, I don't think there's too much risk. Like, I mean, he's on the top power play, and if he's not, like, he's still skating over 20 minutes with like really elite level players. So it just depends on how you value him. And he's got a 36-point pace, like you said. I agree with you. I think he's definitely deserved of more than that. Probably like 40 to 45-point pace, Morgan Riley. If he did that at the end of the year, I think that'd be a successful season. But I think one of the problems is kind of what you were talking about with Timo Meyer. It's like the potential of Morgan Riley, right? Like if they truly get, like Morgan Riley's our guy. He's a QB on power play one, no ifs, ands, or buts, right? We're putting him out there and like, yeah, like this is a guy that's got 25 power play points in the season before, 23, just 4 seasons ago, 20 last season. So he's a good power play performer. He's a gamer for sure. I also think, Austin Matthews and sort of the saga that's been going on with him this year, that has affected the Leafs power play a little bit. Like, I mean, when you have Austin Matthews in and out of the lineup, that's a guy that has an insane amount of gravity, and you have to tailor your game to play with Austin Matthews, right? So if he's out of the lineup, you're playing a different style of game. You're prioritizing different players. And so I do think it's going to be a net positive, though, if Matthews is good and healthy coming back. Like, I think it should raise the ceiling slightly for all the players on that power play, especially. So, yeah, I don't think it's too risky. I think this is a guy, if you wanted to buy low on, like, you wouldn't have to offer very much. Like if you're just looking for a solid D-man, like his floor is probably 35 to 40 points. I think that's pretty reasonable with a ceiling for like 50 points, right? If he can get cooking on the power play.
Yeah, I do think that there is probably a pretty good buy low on Riley. I feel like you can probably get him a little bit closer to his floor right now because he's been so cold. Maybe whoever drafted him is big time Leafs homer and is like super sold on Morgan Riley still. I mean, I love Morgan Riley the player, don't get me wrong. Been one of my favorites since he became a Leaf, but just looking at the fantasy numbers, I do think that there's something more to give here. I think you can kind of get him as a 45 maybe ish point defender at this point, and I think he gets there just with 5v5 time alone. I think he's good enough to do that. And then if he is on top power play rest of the season, then you probably tack on an extra, 10 power play points in terms of pace rest of season. So I do think that he can be a 55-point defenseman rest of season. I don't see a real reason not to. The Leafs power play has not been good so far this season, kind of pretty surprisingly. They've obviously been pretty good for a long time. I do think they probably figure that out. Usually these things kind of normalize over the course of the season, so they'll probably get hot again. Hopefully Matthews being in the lineup does something for that as well. And Morgan Riley should be a beneficiary a little bit there as well. So I do kind of like the buy low a little bit on Morgan Riley because I do kind of feel like you might be able to buy him at the floor price and just kind of reap the benefit of whatever he adds to it.
Yeah.
Heading over to Seattle, the corollary to Vince Dunn popping off is Brandon Montour laying an egg, 1 assist in his last 5, over 26 minutes average time on ice for Montour. He's absolutely getting the star number 1 defenseman treatment, but as of late, hasn't really been producing a whole lot. 90th in shots per 60, which is kind of the one thing that Brandon Montour has always brought to the table is the shots. They've fallen off. 44th in Corsi 4 per 60, 102 in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. It's 17 goal, 40 46-point pace for Montour on the season now, and it's a really tough analysis for me with Montour at this point because it's a split power play. It's not an effective power play, right?
Yeah.
Like, never really has been. They're 22nd in the league right now. Um, so where is the positive regression really coming for with Brandon Montour? It's not a team that generates well. We've kind of been dogging their 5v5 play for much of the year. If you look at scoring chances for per 60 over the last couple of weeks, they're at the bottom of the league at even strength. So, like, things are just not going right in terms of offense outside of Vince Dunn right now
Yeah.
for Seattle. Vince Dunn and Jaden Schwartz, I guess, the two guys popping off for Seattle. And Montour is just kind of a symptom of that as well, and doesn't seem to be able to kind of carry the ship himself. So, where are you at with Brandon Montour? What do you think is a reasonable expectation for him moving forward with the state of the Kraken as they are, and with still the very reasonable minutes that he's getting true number one deployment?
Yeah, I really like the minutes. I mean, that's a quite a simple metric to look at, but like this guy played 29 minutes last game. He's absolutely getting that number one defenseman treatment. And I'm in on a player like that. And he's different than a guy like, Brock Faber, who gets a ton of minutes, right? Like, yeah, like you said, Brandon Montour, this is a guy that usually chucks pucks pretty well from the back end. And obviously, like the last little bit, it hasn't been happening as evidenced by his metrics, but Seattle is such low event hockey. It's insane, right? Like I can't believe there hasn't been more of a change with the new head coach there. Like it seems like certain things have regressed, at least offensively. Maybe they're a little bit better defensively, but I don't know. I do trust the talent of this player. I think Brandon Montour is a really talented guy, and I think those shots will come back. It's a bit of a cold stretch here. Like you said, no one's going, but in terms of pace, like he's on a 46-point pace now. That sounds about right. That sounds about where he should probably land, unless he's able to wrestle power play one away from Vince Dunn. But I don't see that happening. I really don't see that happening. So I think it's going to take a Vince Dunn injury for Brandon Montour to really maximize his offensive potential. But this is a great defenseman in real life, in my opinion. I got him in one spot, and yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. But he was gotten fairly at value here in draft season. So I don't mind too much if he pops for 45. That would be good enough for me.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable expectation. On the season, it's a 46% IPP, 10.6% on ice shooting percentage. You might hope that the on ice shooting percentage could be a little better on a better team, but it being the Kraken, I don't have a lot of faith that it will be much better. And so I'm kind of left with this spot where I'm like, yeah, 45, 50 points is
Yeah.
probably the expectation for Brandon Montour. Yeah, maybe if he is going to skate 26 minutes a night for the rest of the season, he gets a little bit of an uptick there. But realistically, I think that is what we should expect at this point. All right, last one on the list is Roman Yossi. Just one assist in his last 25 and a half minutes average time on ice, ninth in shots per 60 amongst all defensemen, 23rd Corsi 4 per 60, 31st on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. He's single digits in all of these ranks on the season. Shots per 60, individual scoring chances 4 per 60, Corsi 4 per 60, and on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. So he's still doing it. The underlying numbers are all still there for Roman Yossi, but definitely hasn't put the puck in the net the same way. It's a 16 goal, 57-point pace for him this year. What's your take on Yossi rest of season? Do you think he's still a top five defenseman? Should we be sending offers for Roman Yossi? Where do you think you land on him now?
You bet your sweet bippy, buddy. You put some offers out for Roman Yossi and you do it now. All right. This man's an insane buy low. I think, yeah, temper expectations a little bit, but he's on a 57-point pace. That's his floor. 57 points. That's Roman Yossi's floor. Okay. So everything on top of that, that's icing on the cake. Okay. And I think that, yeah, it's a down season for the Predators. They're figuring things out a little bit. They've been playing better as of late, but I'm still, like I had a chance to get Philip Forsberg in the league, and I was like, nah, like I don't really want a piece of that. But with Yossi, you're getting value over replacement like a hot damn. I mean, this guy, I just love the player and I trust the player. It's I think there's more to give. I think by the end of the year, he'll probably be like a 65-point defenseman, and that'll be a down year for Yossi, but still, he's easily a top five defenseman in fantasy. And I think, yeah, you should get this guy on your team.
All right, let's do a quick would you rather with Yossi versus the other top defenseman right
Ooh-wee.
now. Kale McCarr.
Oh, come on, buddy. I'm taking my car. Wait, Yossi. No. Yossi, get the hell out of my sight. I'm sorry, buddy.
All right, Quinn Hughes.
Nope. Come on.
Zach Werenski.
Ooh, I love that one actually. I take. Oh, damn, that is such a weird question. I think I want to go Wierenski there for fun, but that's comparable. Like I think Yossi and Wierenski are comparable.
Yeah, I think in most leagues, especially if you have decent shots weight, I'm going Werenski. That shot volume is just
Okay.
otherworldly
Out
out
of
of
hand.
Werenski right now. Evan Bouchard.
Yeah, I'm going Yossi. You gotta take Yossi there.
All right, Josh Morrissey with the season he's having.
Yossi.
All right.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah, and I assume same Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah, no, I'm going Yossi over those
All right.
boys. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I think I would go Werenski, McCarr, Hughes over Yossi, and then it's a conversation with Bouchard, but that's kind of it, right? That's the top five in most respects right now. So
Yep.
I think that's where we're at, and it probably is a bit of a buy low opportunity right now on Roman Yossi. That's all that we've got in terms of these players here. But if we didn't talk about a player that you want to hear about, make sure you join me for the Puzzling Players segment that I live stream every single Monday, 8 p.m. EST, right here on the Apples and Ginos YouTube channel. Let's get under the hood with Shane Pinto. Another reason that I'm not super into Josh Norris is because I am kind of into Shane Pinto. The Pinto bean, Blake.
Oh yeah, the Pinto Bean. That's how we do it. Thank you, Nate, for picking me up on that.
All right. He's got 5 goals, 2 assists in his last 10 games. Not so much in the last 5 here. He's been struggling along with the rest of the team, just 1 assist in the last 5. But he has been getting the average time on ice is ticking up 17:42 in the last 10 games. If you go over the last 5 only, it's 18 minutes, 50 seconds. So that's ticking up in these last 10 games. 69th in shots per 60 amongst all forwards. Pretty nice.
Nice.
18th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. It's the on ice numbers that haven't been so good. 171st in Corsi, 4 per 60, 137th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. But also, Shane Pinto has been kind of mired on a third line there for a while. And with the little kind of blip in the radar that we've been having with Ottawa as of late, they have moved these lines around a little bit. Pinto was on the Brady Tkachuk line and also with Ridley Grigg on the other line. On the other side of the line, I should say. So that would be a good spot, obviously. You want him to get a little bit more exposure to the top guys there in Ottawa, and I think that could be coming. We talked about Shane Pinto last year, Blake. He had a little stretch where he kind of popped off in a big way. The individual scoring chances 4 per 60 were the big thing that popped to us that time as well, and it looks like he might be rounding into form on that front there. I'm not sure really if there's a massive ceiling on Shane
Yeah.
Pinto. That's the part that I'm still kind of trying to figure out with this player. But I mean, if all of a sudden he ends up playing with, let's say, Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson on the other side, like sign me up. That's going to be an absolute auto ad at that point with these underlying numbers being pretty good as well. So I wanted to shout him out here as a player that you definitely need to be keeping your eye on. What do you have to say about the Pinto B?
Yeah, you know I love the pinto bean. I love me some chili. All right, it's delicious. Oh God, I have jokes in my mind. I can't say them because my voice will crack. So there you go. But yeah, no, I'm into it. I love that you're kind of highlighting this player. The problem with Pinto is he's behind 2 other centers there in Ottawa, right? So like you said, if he gets moved up the lineup, playing with Brady Tkachuk, sure, that's excellent. Like just looking at Frozen Tools right now, like their Corsi 4 percentage as a line, 65%. That's excellent. And
Nice.
that's going to be the case when you have Brady Tkachuk, right? Because that's what he does. But I mean, that's a great place to be. They're tilting the ice there. So if he can maintain that deployment, I think it's great because this is a guy that's done stuff in the past. Like you look at what he's done 5-on-5 this year's IPP is way down, shots on goal per 60 down, right? On ice shooting percentage down. So I think actually his on ice shooting percentage is up. So what the hell's wrong with me? But yeah, this is a guy that I think has a lot of potential, but it's all deployment dependent. So yeah, I'm happy to see him skating in the top 6 there.
All right, let's move over to move of the week. Blake, why don't you take us away here and talk to us about locking down some W's?
Oh God. I wish I didn't have to talk about this. All right. I had a great week. Shout out to me. I'm the most modest person. I've been told that before, Nate. But
You're known for this for sure.
yeah, the most modest. Anyways, I didn't make a lot of moves. Things just went well this week, but I had one matchup that was fairly close. Going into today, I was up all week. It was close today, and I had one ad left, and it bit me right in the butt. Because I used it for next week, my ad, to set myself up for next week instead of trying to, secure this dub. And of course, the worst happened. Austin Matthews tooted right in my face. Frank Vetrano, what are you doing, buddy? Scored 2 goals, just crushed me. Anders Lee as well. What the hell is this guy's problem? Anyways, yeah, I just got annihilated, and I'm gonna lose that matchup by like 1 point. So yeah, I mean, I this is something I've been doing, and I just think, it's not over until it's over. And sometimes I think we forget how important each individual win is, like going towards the end of the season. Like the ideal situation, we're looking at getting buys, right, in our playoffs, right? So we can set ourselves up and smash when it comes playoff time. And we need every single win to do that. So I'm going to make an adjustment moving forward, just make sure these dubs are locked down. And I do think that it's a lot better than getting a head start next week with like a streamer level player. You know what I mean? I could have picked someone up to help myself. So shame on me. I won't do that again.
Yeah, and I think there is some nuance to that too, as well, right? Like if you're cruising in first place and you're like, this is close enough that like the chances that me picking up one extra guy is not gonna move the needle here, then yeah, you can probably go ahead. And if it does turn into a bad beat, it turns into a bad beat, and you're still in first place. Like that's a different scenario than if you're scratching and clawing to make the playoffs, or you're really
Yeah.
gunning for that bye against some other really good teams in your league. Those are two very different scenarios, and so I think that's a spot that you need to kind of make your own evaluation on a week by week basis. But definitely, I totally agree that people really don't respect the value of locking down W's when you have a chance to do that. They all like want to look ahead and get the big hotness for that streamer for
Yeah.
next week. And yeah, that is exciting. But our streamer hit rate, if we're being honest with ourselves, like we think we're better than 50%, but like how much better than
Yeah.
50% are we, right? So there's always that element to it, is you don't want to overestimate what you can do in either direction. But when you're presented with the chance to very obviously potentially affect the outcome of your matchup on the last day, like that's where you can probably realistically get the most bang for your buck with any ad. So you don't want to save all your ads to the end of the week, obviously, because you need to get the points throughout the week to get to that point at the end of the week. But when you're staring down that last ad, totally makes sense. One thing not to do when you're staring down your last ad in a Cats league is to take a look and
Whoopsie-doodle.
be like, hey, I only need 6 saves here to take over the saves category and to flip my matchup from a 5-4 loss to a 5-4 win. So yeah, I'll go add Alex Nedeljkovic, and yeah, then I'll just leave him on my bench and look on in horror as I realize that halfway through the game. That's what I did today, and that's why I didn't get a clean sweep in all my matchups this week. So yeah, don't be like me. Take the extra second. Sometimes you may be getting some dirty looks from partners or some things like that, maybe happening in the background, but,
Yeah.
Block out the noise for a second. You got to be a professional fantasy hockey player, right? If you're going to rely on these professional hockey players to do stuff for you, you got to put in your own professionalism on your end as well. So don't be like me, and actually double check after you make the ad that he actually went into your starting lineup. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I made that particular mistake, but yeah, it's all in the details. You got to bear down, and you got to get into the details, got to get into the weeds with this kind of stuff sometimes. So that's my move of the week. Big miss on my end. All right, let's round this thing up with the ultimately unfortunate head-to-head streamer deathmatch. Blake, I think honestly this might be the best head-to-head streamer deathmatch performance of all time. Troy Terry, he probably scored more points. We had to just write in a number because we were recording this as that game was still going on. But he was over 30 points anyway in terms of a couple points. And Nick Schmaltz laid an absolute egg with 5 points on the week. So Troy Terry absolutely doing the thing. What was it? 3 goals? How much did he end up
I
with
don't
here?
even know. I,
It was ridiculous. What do you have to say for yourself, Blake?
I'm happy for it. Thank you very much for leaving Troy Terry for me. I mean, yeah, bit of a surprise, but I'll take the dub there and just move on. But yeah, that's what a nice week. This guy's a must roster player, folks. Straight up.
Yep, absolutely agree there. Finally, Greg Cronin has realized that Troy Terry and Frank Vatrano are his two best players, and he's playing them like it. And what do you know? It's working out for them. They come up with a 4-1 dub over Tampa Bay in this game here as well. All right, Blake, you get the first pick for next week. Who are you going with?
I gotta go with the cameo snub, Ross Colton. All right. We tried to get Ross Colton to say happy birthday to Nate on Cameo. He just refused the assignment. All right. What a dingus, but great fantasy player. And I'm sticking with him this week for the 4-game week. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. I'm going to go. I talked about how every time I lean on Jaden Schwartz, I pick him up somewhere or I like espouse him as like a good pickup. He absolutely toots in my face, and I fully expect that to happen once again with Jaden Schwartz, but he is going to be my pickup. Playing with Matty Beniers at even strength, not a bad spot. Playing on the Jared McCann power play unit, that's where I want my streamer to be. So it is going to be Jaden Schwartz for me. I fully expect to come back and he'll have put up a Schmaltzian-esque performance once again next week. But I'm going with the numbers.
Just
I can't.
lowering your expectations, Nate. That's a smart strategy, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe it was too high before. Now you're lowering, and I think you're going to be happy with what you see.
I'm hoping so
There
because
you go.
something's got to change. I got to go by the numbers. That's all I can do at this point. If you're going by the numbers, then you should probably join the Apples and Junos Discord community. That's where 1,500 plus fantasy managers, all going by the numbers, reside. And we talk about said numbers almost exclusively every single day in there. If you made it this far and you're not completely irate at our diversions and digressions, I guess. You should also like, rate, review, subscribe, comment. Really does help us out, but that's going to be all that we got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.